It's just all about the way I think about it is if you want to go in that direction, the first thing you want to do is
Mm.
make sure you're not heading the opposite way. So it's
Mm.
just a simple
Wow.
concept, right? So
Hmm.
if I want to get a job with BMW, I'm not going to waste my time applying to Toyota. You
It's true. It's true. I feel that. I feel that.
know, I'm going to put all of my energy into BMW, right?
For
And I
sure.
think the mistake that we make sometimes is that they're already planning uh their plan B or whatever, or in
Mm.
case this fails, I might as well just have
Mm.
this in the background. And by doing that, what you're doing is subconsciously also telling yourself that you're not gonna
You're
make
not good
it.
enough. Mm.
Yeah, or you're not enough. So I
Yeah.
think that is very important. When you think about it that way, it is so
Hmm.
important, and that's where that mindset comes from. You just gotta go with your gut, in that situation, which is exactly what I
Mm.
did. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I was going to get into trouble by just showing up and trying to talk to people. All I cared about was,
This show is sponsored by Scribblehoard. It's a creative business that creates tools and resources that helps creatives build successful creative brands. One of the ways that we've done this is with the Scribble Sketchpad. This is a guided sketchpad that helps take you from an idea to the execution of the idea. With productivity tools, inspirational quotes, and creative prompts, start taking ownership of bringing your ideas to life with this sketchpad. Get yours at scribblehoard.com and use code PODCAST to get 10% off your first order.
Tosin, how are you, my friend?
hey, man, I'm doing great. How about
I'm
yourself?
doing well. I'm doing well. I'm not gonna lie. I'm pumped for this interview. I know it's been a long time coming, and honestly, like
Yeah.
I think that uh, what is so great about you is you have so much wisdom, and like you don't really like you don't really you're not proud about it. Like I love your humility around how you really really give value. If you aren't following Tosin on social media, like you're missing out. His encouraging posts as well, especially I actually saw your story this morning about
Yeah.
how if you want to give value to someone, so if you want to what was it? If you want to get help from someone, right? You should make sure that you have really shown that you have um, really put the
Really
problem
put the problem.
in like your view of thought, like really thought about like the problem and really tried to solve the problem for yourself before asking for help. And I was just like, wow, like that's so true. Like no one will actually feel like
Yeah.
helping you if you
Yeah.
haven't done the work to try and help your first.
That's right.
Where did that inspiration come from, do you think?
That inspiration, funny enough, actually came from for the first book that I wrote, which is self-titled. My page name, Passion Reveals Purpose. So that's where that inspiration comes from. So
Oh,
showing
good.
commitment to your problem before going to people with the problem. And I think what led me to write that is my experience, personal experience, when I left uni and I was looking for a job.
Mm.
And I was applying for jobs online, and you get all these emails back. Unfortunately, we regret to inform you, and this and this and that. And I'm
Been
like,
there.
okay, let's do that, right? I'm like, let's be
Mm.
fair. These people, they don't really owe me anything. I'm sitting at
Yeah.
home on my computer, sending them resume, and then they just,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not really putting enough effort into this. So
Mm.
what I did was I took a list of 50 IT companies in Brisbane, and I
Mm.
went knocking on the doors, like showed up, you know, face to face,
Yeah.
asking to talk to the managers or whoever's in charge. So when I saw these people, what they saw was, wow, the effort, you're putting in to come
Mm.
to us and ask for a job. That's pretty
Mm.
impressive. I got a job. Uh, the first attempt I made, oh no, sorry, the third attempt I made, I got a job right there on
Mm-hmm.
the spot. That was my very
Wow.
first
On your third
professional,
attempt?
on my third attempt, on
Wow.
the same day, the day that I started doing this, I got a job. It's a long story. You should. It's in my book. I wrote about it. I
Mm.
got a job right there, and I was asked how much I wanted to be paid.
What?
It
You were
was
asked how much you wanted to
ridiculous.
be paid.
Exactly.
How much did you put on the? What was your first like offer, and did they accept it?
I wasn't expecting that answer, to be honest with you. So I wasn't prepared for it because I actually had a chance to
Fair.
sit down with the CEO of this company who said to me, "So tell
Mm.
me, how much do you want to be paid?" And I'm like, "Oh, can I think about it and get back to you tomorrow?" And it was like, "Sure, absolutely. Let me know tomorrow." So I went back home,
Good
did my
answer.
research.
Mm.
Yeah, my research, and came back with an offer, and they didn't say no to it. That was my very first experience, and that showed me the power of showing commitment to your problems, so that
Mm.
when people see you, they really want to help you. They want to, help you get there. That's very important.
I love that. Okay, so like side note, was that when you like were asking for how much to get paid, were you asking like the average your type of person in your experience that will get paid, or were you like shooting for a bit higher, above average?
I was trying to shoot, so but at the time,
Let's go.
I was also more interested in getting the experience. I just needed the job to get the experience.
Yeah.
So I went with the rule, of plus a $10,000. I'm like, okay,
Mm.
this is the industry average. Okay, I'm gonna add 10 to that and see if they try to negotiate. But fortunately, it was like, that's okay. We'll pay you that, and I'm like,
I
okay,
love that.
perfect. Maybe I should have asked for more.
I mean, look, like I think that even the fact that you still shot your shot with going above average, I mean that like
Hmm.
I mean there you go. I remember my friend, he finished high school and he didn't want to go to uni and he was looking for a job and he got his first job at a car dealership. And how he got that
Yeah.
job was the funniest thing. What he did was he literally was calling up different businesses, and all he did was call them. He said, "Hey, I want to speak to your manager." "Ah, okay." So they transferred him to the manager. "Hey, I'm looking for a job. Do you have any jobs going?" And they're like, "Oh, I'm like, yeah, like great. When's my interview?" That was his reply. "Great. When is my interview?" I kid you not. I was shocked. I was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean? When's my interview?" But they like 100%. As soon as he called the dealership
Mm.
up, and he said the same thing. They're like, "Are you free tomorrow?" He's like, "Yep, sure, I'll come in." Went in, got the job. Now he's working for a BMW dealership.
Oh wow.
I kid you not. And so in my head, I was like, and this no qualifications. He didn't do anything TAFE or he didn't go. And how do I? He just went straight up like, "Hey, do you have any jobs? Great. When's my interview?" And they were like, "I love the initiative." And so that's what your story
That's right.
reminded me of because I think that a lot of the time, um, we can think of 101 ways that really going for the job that we want won't work. We can think of 101 ways where, going for, um, going to cold call a client or, trying to get more customers in your business. Like we can think about, um, yeah, how it won't work. And I've been in that position myself. So I guess my next
Yeah.
question to you is how do we um, get out of get out of that?
Get out of that mindset
How
where,
or more so, how do we step into the mindset of confidently just going for it?
yeah. So here's what I think is, for me personally. You have to have clarity in terms of what you really want, because I think one of the
Mm,
problems that we sometimes is we're not clear on where we want to go. So as a result,
mm,
we're not clear on how to get there. So for me, I had a clear cut, image of where I wanted to work. what I wanted to do.
Mm.
So it's easy for me to kind of like have a short list of places that I wanted to talk to. And
Mhm.
if you have that, you have you're more confident. Let me put it this way. Another way you can think about
Mm.
this is I've been doing a lot with partnerships lately, and when you
Mm.
meet people and talk about partnerships, the first thing they want to know is what are your growth goals? What are the things you want to achieve? If you're
Mm.
not able to articulate that, you're never going to get anything out of that conversation.
Mm.
So it's like going to a partnership conversation and telling them, I'm going to be the best partner that you've ever worked with.
Mm.
First thing they're going to do is stop and think, like,
Like what? How? What do you mean? Where are you coming from?
yeah, exactly. But before you can make a statement like that, you must have had a really, really clearly defined goals as to what you want to do with this partner, what you're going to do for them, and how you're going to
Mm.
make that happen. It's a statement you make, because if you just make that statement and you have nothing to back it up, you're going to regret it. So
Yeah,
for
for
me, I
sure.
think getting into that mindset requires knowing for sure what it is that you want to do, and then
Mm.
knowing exactly how it should look, and what it should look like. And I know that may sound a little bit vague, but
Mm.
it's just all about the way I think about it is if you want to go in that direction, the first thing you want to do is
Mm.
make sure you're not heading the opposite way. So it's
Mm.
just a simple
Wow.
concept, right? So
Hmm.
if I want to get a job with BMW, I'm not going to waste my time applying to Toyota. You know,
It's true. It's true. I feel that. I feel that.
I'm going to put all of my energy into BMW, right?
For
And I
sure.
think the mistake that we make sometimes is that they're already planning uh, their plan B or whatever, or in
Mm.
case this fails, I might as well just have
Mm.
this in the background. And by doing that, what you're doing is subconsciously also telling yourself that you're not going to
You're
make
not
it.
good enough. Mm.
Yeah, or you're not enough. So I
Yeah.
think that is very important. When you think about it that way, it is so
Mm-hmm.
important, and that's where that mindset comes from. You just gotta go with your gut, in that situation, which is exactly what I
Mm.
did. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I was going to get into trouble by just showing up and trying to talk to people. All I cared about was
Mm.
I need to speak to people in this industry, and I need them to give me a job. That's all.
Love.
So that's very important.
I love that. And like, was the question of, am I going to make it? Um, is this going to work out? Like that come into mind, or was your mindset just straight like, I'm going to do this and this is going to work out and that's that? Like no plan B, it doesn't matter like how long it takes, or like what was your mindset stepping into that, and what helped you stay in that mindset?
My mindset was, what's the percentage of people looking for jobs? Like, what percentage of people out there looking for work are doing
Mm.
what I'm about to do?
Mm.
Like, you have to
Mm.
put yourself in a place where you have an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
When I thought about that, I'm like, maybe 5%, you know. So if you become a
Mm.
part of that 5%, your chances just went up, of getting a job actually just went up.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
that's the same thing to
Mm-hmm.
do as well. No matter what it is that you're trying to achieve, you have to look at approaches and ways that most people are not going to consider, or approaches and ways that
Yeah.
people are going to consider too risky, too dangerous,
Mm.
or too, whatever. The same thing goes for investments. People who really, really, cash out on investments are people who are like aggressive. They take risk and they do things that most people wouldn't do. You know,
Mm.
so that was my mindset. Like, okay, most people are just sitting at home applying on the computers. If I step out and go out and speak to people, I've already leveraged something that most people aren't doing, and I'm already in
Mm.
a different, on a different level. They see you as coming with more. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, they see you as having you know, being proactive. Imagine if you're like, if you run a company and someone comes to you,
Mm.
asking for a job, and then at the same time you got an email from another guy applying for a job. Who are you going to give the
Mm.
job to? Like, it's a
Yeah.
no-brainer. So it's just
Yeah.
that showing, and showing that, that
Initiative.
proactiveness, that okay, I can think of things
Yeah.
before I actually need them. That's all that's really important, really. That's, I think that was what my mindset was. I just wanted to put myself in a place where I have an advantage over everyone else in the market looking for a job. Yeah.
You know what's wild? Like, I love how we've just really just started this conversation, and we haven't really like even got into much about what you do, how we kind of got here, and I love it already because like if you're listening, you can just already tell the type of person that Tosin is. He has so much to give, and I'm really really pumped to yeah to really continue this conversation with him. Tosin, tell us more about how you got to where you are. You are many, many things, my friend. You are an e-commerce consultant. You are a course creator, an author, a founder of a gospel choir, frequent holidayer, golfer. Like, tell us. I mean, like that's a lot of things, my man. And obviously, you need a lot of time to be able to do all of those things. And obviously, you've created, a space where you can afford the time to do all those things. So, can you tell us more about how you got to where you are? How, where you started, where you are now, how it's going.
Wow. That's I hope you have the time for that. So this,
All the time.
I'd say this goes way way back. If I have to really go all the way back, I would go back to when I was 17. That's when
Way
everything
back.
really
Love
changed
it.
for me, to be honest with you.
Mm.
Way back when I was 17, last year in high school, I had a moment where I just thought to myself, what I what am I going to do with my life, or what I wanted to do with myself. So at that time, you know,
Classic question.
that's not the kind of question you want to entertain. You
Mm.
just want to have fun, you know, with people. So I came across a guy called Miles Monroe. Right. You may have
Cool.
heard of him. He passed away now, so he's an author and also a preacher and motivational speaker. He's a lot of things. So I read a couple of his
Yeah.
books, and that's what really changed everything for me. I realized at that point in time that I need to decide and make up my mind where I want to be the next 10, 15, 20 years. So I sat down when I was 17 and I wrote my goals for the next 30 years.
Mm.
I wrote my goals. I wrote where I want to be and the things I wanted to do for the next 30 years. I still have that piece of paper in my house to today,
Wow.
many, many years later. So, and when I did that, the next step for me was obviously I need to put myself in places where I can learn and grow and become the kind of person I want to be. So
Mm.
I went into reading. I started reading like books. I just read everything I could read. I came across something, a guy who said, if you want to get better at finances, make sure you read finance books
Mm.
equal to the number of your, make sure you read management books equal to the number of your age. So I was 17. I was like, where am I going to find
Wow.
17 books on finance? So that was my approach when I was 17. I read 17 books in topics that I was interested in. So by the
Yeah.
time I was done reading all these books, I had so much information that I was just busting to do something. You know what I'm saying? Busting to
Love
do
it.
something. And that's where my journey really started. I went and studied networking and cybersecurity. I studied that in Singapore. I
Mm.
lived there for 3 years studying, living with my brothers. And then I came to Australia and did my second degree, did my master's before I went into
Hmm.
working in e-commerce. So I guess I'm saying all of that to say everything I'm doing now was like possible because of the foundation that I laid when it comes to learning. It's
Mm.
important to learn, because I think the the world we live in today, I know it's drastically changed. Like
Yeah.
everything is accessible on social media. Everything's accessible on the internet. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, I think what's really, really important is to not confuse social media, social media noise with actual
Mm.
growth. I think that's what our generation is missing, because you can see a lot of people doing a lot of things on social media, but when we take that offline, what's the value of
Mm.
it?
Wow.
What value are you really adding, or what value are you really contributing to your industry or to the space that you're working in?
Yeah,
If you
for
take
sure.
all of that off, if you switch off the
Mm.
online part of it, do you have anything left?
Mm.
That's very, and I mean, it may sound traditional, but that was my approach. And anyway, so I
Mm.
went from there. I had a period where I just study, 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 study. I know this sounds, very Nigerian. You can relate because, you know, parents are like study, 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 study. You
That's
know,
true.
you have your first degree, that they're already thinking about your masters, and then they're
Mm-hmm.
they're talking about any chance you do a PhD, and I'm
PhD?
like, uh-uh.
Yes, sir.
So I had a period of about 7 to 9 years where I was just studying back to back to back to back.
Mm.
3 degrees later, one master's degree, two business diplomas,
Jeez.
all of this stuff, just back to back. And that's where I really,
Mm.
really, I was able to fine tune what I wanted to do with my life. I was like, okay,
Mm.
my work is my work is really in three different spaces: IT,
Mm.
self development, and music. So, and I made sure that I had something going on in each one of these categories
Love
that
that.
I could build over time.
Mm.
So that was from quitting my job to starting a consulting business in IT, and also
Mm.
starting a gospel choir, which isn't just a gospel choir, but attached to it is an entertainment business called Sing Entertainment that
There you
does
go.
all the management and the booking for the choir.
Wow.
And on top of that, I have Passion Rivers Purpose, which is about self development, writing books, encouraging people, just
Mm-hmm.
just adding value. They're just sharing content like what you're talking about earlier. It's
Mm.
just I just want to share as much as possible to help someone, and that's where my journey really started. Now I'm at a point where I just want to manage all three, and then just grow,
Mm.
each category of what I'm doing.
Mm.
So yeah, that's like how it started. Yeah.
I love that. Like you have what I noticed from what you just said is that you spent your time acquiring information and skills.
Hmm.
You spent your time really
Correct.
delving into what, like, number one, where am I going? So clarifying the goal and where you want to go, and then from there you built out the skills necessary to be able to achieve that goal. And I think that's so important because at the end of the day, um, I love what you said. When you remove social media, what's left? Because I think our audience are obviously creative entrepreneurs, and social media is a huge part of what they do. Social media is something that whether it's for their personal brand or for their business, um, essentially like social media is what gets their name out there, and we often find that we have a lot of people who think that social media um, is everything, right? We think that, we may think that, oh, I see you, Tosin, online, and like you do your passion reveals purpose thing online, and that's all you do. Or, like you would think that, like what is seen there is what reality is, when obviously it's not. And I love how you really highlighted the fact that it's important for us to really make sure that we get the information that we need first. Um, and then go into whatever our whatever area that our goals, our dreams kind of lead into. um,
Mm.
but talk to me about your entrepreneurial journey, because you just mentioned that you do three different things, and I didn't even know the gospel choir was like a business, had an entrepreneurial side to it, to be honest, until you just mentioned it. How did you get started in the whole entrepreneurial space? Because obviously you just shared your story about coming, going into, the workforce, going to take what's yours, a very aggressive approach that not a lot of people would actually, do. Aggressive, proactive, probably a better even choice of word. But how did you go from that to, okay, now I want to run my own show? And essentially, like, how did you transition that? And obviously, you're doing well for yourself. What was the journey towards actually achieving those goals?
Hmm, that's a good question. This is where I always say, like, you have to define your transition before you even get there,
Whoa.
because when you arrive at it, you're not going to recognize it.
Wow. Say
Yeah.
that again. Say that
So
again.
for me, you have to define your transition period before you even arrive at it.
Wow.
So when you get there, you can recognize it or say, okay, this is where I want it to be to transition into this.
Mm.
Think about athletes, for example, when they retire from the sport. Some of them have goals, they have objectives. I want to win 5 championships and I'm going to retire.
Mm.
If you don't set that goal, you're not going to know when you're at that point. And some
Mm.
of them could say things like, just recently before we got on this call, I was reading on social media, Tom Brady just retired. And one thing he said was, he said, he told himself a while ago, like, whenever I get to a point where I can no longer give 100% of my commitment and effort to this sport, I'm gonna quit. And
Wow.
he's at that point right now. It feels like I don't have the 100% to give.
Mm.
So defining that moment was really critical for me. And for me, one of the definitions that I had was income.
Mm.
Like, when I get this income bracket, I want to transition into doing something else, because that income bracket will give me the opportunity to fund something else, so I
Mm.
can slowly move into it. So if you're earning $45,000 a year, that's probably not enough for you to start thinking about starting a business on the side, because
Yeah.
I don't know what your expenses are.
Mhm.
But maybe you can say, when I get to 75,000,
Mm.
I'm going to take 20 out of that and start investing it into businesses.
Wow.
By being intentional, being specific like that, when you get to that point, you're not going to miss it, because you already made the promise to yourself, you already
Mhm.
made the commitment.
Mm.
You take that 20,000, you start investing it into businesses, and then slowly, 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 you can transition into moving yourself out of an employment to being a full-time business owner, or like a consultant, like I did.
Mm.
So the income bracket was it for me. When I got to that point, I said, okay, this is when I need to start thinking about transitioning. And then the opportunity presented itself in the form of, uh, when I was on a job. A friend of mine left the job and quit the job to start a consulting agency, but still working for the company. And I saw the opportunity. I said to myself, "Oh, this is perfect," because I didn't even have to put any money into it. All I had to
Mm.
do was set up shop and work with the same clients that I'm already working with on the job.
Mm.
So that's what really did it for me. Defining the moment of my transition
Mm.
is how I knew it was time for me to go from a paid job to a consulting business.
So with that job, was that the job that you called up that you wanted a job? The third one that you
Mm.
called up? Wow. Okay. And so how is that like? Wow. So how's that transition?
The third one that I called up wasn't actually the last job that I had. It was the
Okay,
first
cool.
job that I had coming out of uni. So that was the Department of Transport in Queensland, right? So they had they had an arrangement with a private company called Transmax. And what Transmax develops the software and the tools that TMR uses to monitor traffic and to do intersection programming. So my job was to
Mm.
actually program the intersections that you drive through. So I was working on programming the lights, and the sequences and all of
Fair
that stuff.
enough.
Fun job, by the way. That was my job. And from that job, I went on to work with the Department of Justice doing network administration.
Wow.
And then from Department of Justice, I went on to work with the e-commerce company. That
Mm.
was the transition to e-commerce. And then from the e-commerce company, that's where I got the idea to start a consulting business. I became a consultant to the company, what they call partners. And then we work with the same clients and the same portfolios that we had as
Mm.
employees. And that's kind of like you know, the path that I took, 3 jobs to get there. So
Okay, so
it's
break
pretty
this down.
amazing.
Break this down for us.
Mm.
Okay, so you're working for an e-commerce business, and you think, okay, my friends quit now, and that actually looks like a good idea for me. How did you then go, okay, let me consult the business that I'm actually working in, straight out of straight out of the ring, and then B, how did you then set it up in a way that number one, like you, I mean, obviously operating a business, like, do you work with other people? Like, do you hire anyone or partner with anyone?
Yeah, so the way that came about was obviously when I saw my friend doing it. He came into the office one day and started talking about his growth and how much money he's making and all
Hmm.
this and why he's so good. The fact that he's got so much work, he's looking for people to work for him. And I'm like, are you serious? And he's
Opportunity.
doing exactly what we were doing, getting
Hmm.
paid like a third of what he's earning for. So I said to him, I'm really interested in this, so I want to have a look at it. And at the same time, I had a situation, personal family situation that meant that I had to go back to the States to
Hmm.
be with family. So what I did was approach the company and said to them, okay, I'm going to quit my job but I'm going to stay on as a contractor. I'm still going to work for your clients, but this is my price. This is what I want you to pay me for that.
Hmm.
And they were like, okay, we'll do that because it's a win-win situation. I have a 3 year worth of experience with the platform.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of the integration specialists. I wrote some of the requirements for the major integrations, which we won awards for. So
Wow.
to them, it's a no. We have to keep this guy, or we have to keep working with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we had
Sure.
this arrangement. So I went to the US, and I was running my show from there, contracting for them. And in the process of doing that, that's when I decided I'm actually going to transition fully into my own consulting business and just
So you're doing it part
have a
time at the time.
partnership. At the time, I was doing it part time, pretty
Wow.
much. And I decided like it's time for me to transition into full consulting business and actually
Hmm.
become a partner with this company,
Wow.
which I told them about. We had this conversation, and we set up a partnership, and the rest was history. And I started working with my friend as well. We
Hmm.
we share projects. We share clients, so we have a network of friends that we all work together. We all exchange clients and things like that. It's like a community of friends. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how everything started, really. Yeah, and the rest was just managing those relationships, managing the opportunities you get. Like I said in my online course, to say something about for the first 3 years, for the first 2 to 3 years, my business was coming from 3 main clients.
Hmm.
All of my business came from like 3 to 5 clients in the
Hmm.
first 2 to 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
and that's because we had that relationship prior to starting the business, and you just enjoy repeat business as a result of that.
Hmm.
So then that's very important, I guess, as a consultant, because you're not always going to have the luxury of going out there and signing new clients, so you have to
Hmm.
find ways to leverage the you already have and get repeat business. So that's what I did, really.
I love that. And so I just wanted to point something out with what you said was that you um, you were someone who you mentioned that you offered like your leverage when you were leaving leaving the business, turning into consultant. You made like you had 3 years of experience. You helped to write part of the requirements for the software. How did you? Um, One theme that I really realized from what you were just saying is that you really created value before you really made the transition. Like it was a no brainer. And I'm not sure, like, were you getting paid less than what you were getting paid when you were working full time, or about the same?
I was actually getting paid more.
Wow. Okay. Hold on. So you're not only getting paid more, you were now a consultant for the business you were before you were an employee at. And then the
Yeah.
third thing that I realized is that number one, it was a no-brainer for them. So like, can you walk us through how do you look at value? I mean, like, in the sense of when you're trying to provide value to, whether it's your partnerships or whether it's your business or whether it's to your customers, you obviously have a really good handle on um, what it actually means to um, provide value regardless of the type of relationship that you have. So I'd love for you to like break down how do you actually provide value to someone um, regardless of the context that it's in.
Right. I think when you think about it, value is really embedded in problems. So
Mm,
you think about value, people think about value as something that is a standalone or it doesn't stand alone. Value is something you derive from a problem or a pain point, a situation. So from a consultant point of view, if I see a problem, then I also see a way to add value. You know, for the business owners, if they have a problem, they're looking for a solution, not necessarily value. But from your point of view, you want to add value, such a way that they feel comfortable working with you, or they trust that you're capable of solving their problem. So for me, the way I
mm,
did that was basically just looking at where these problems exist, right? So
mhm,
like I did things like offering reports, obligation free reports to, businesses, just to show them areas where they can improve their processes, or areas, things that they can utilize that they may not already be using,
mm,
providing things like that at no cost whatsoever, and
mm,
just leaving them to it to think about it. You're adding value before you're even engaged with
mm,
them, and they see that as something really compelling. They want to work with you. And another way I also do this is listening. I think this is like an underrated skill. You
mm,
have to learn how to listen. you know like, I've been in meetings where people go away thinking they know what the solution is, only to call back 2 days later and asking questions all over
yeah.
again. That's because they never listened in the first place.
Mm.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Unfortunately, we weren't able to upload the full episode due to technical difficulties, but if you would like to catch up with Tosin and what he does, please follow him at Passion Reveals Purpose on Instagram. We'll see you in the next episode.